So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. We will wait another 1-2 minutes and then we will start. We have a special guest this evening, and the guest is Peter Dobur, CEO DN AGRAR. But like in 1-2 minutes, in order to wait for the others that register for the webinar, we will wait. Thank you. So once again, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining today's, actually this evening discussion. As previously announced, we are more than welcome to have this webinar organized by InvestWin. Peter Dobur, CEO DN AGRAR. Just a short background. InvestWin is a platform that is dedicated to those interested in investments. It was launched at the beginning of this year, and I am Daniela Aldescu, consultant in investor relations and one of the co-founders of this platform. Once again, I'm delighted to welcome Peter Dobur. I promise you to have an authentic conversation with DN AGRAR CEO and to explore one of the most inspiring success stories of the Romanian capital market. As some of you may know, DN AGRAR became the largest listed company on the AeRO market, and it has more than 3,500 shareholders currently, so many of you maybe are already investors. Is the largest dairy milk producer in Europe and one of the leading integrated agri-food company in Romania. Listed at the Bucharest Stock Exchange since 2020, and of course in top companies in terms of liquidity, comparable to liquidities from the main market. So welcome, Peter Dobur, and thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much, and also thank you for rescheduling due to my little accident that I had. We needed to postpone with almost a month, but yeah, thank you for your flexibility. I'm really looking forward to this this new platform. One little correction: we got listed in 2022, not 2020. And to add, yeah, we have over 3,700 shareholders even. But for the rest, yeah, thank you very much for the introduction.
So on my notes, it was 2022 for sure, but
I know.
being late and the emotions to have you tonight, I mentioned 2020, so my mistake on this. So let's start with the beginning, Peter. As I was mentioning, DN AGRAR is the largest milk producer in Romania, but the road for you to position has been, let's say, a bit long and full of strategic decision. How did DN AGRAR evolve from a dairy producer to a leading integrated business? Which are the milestones that shaped your journey, let's say?
Okay, the journey of the company, of course. My father founded their company in 2008 with different groups of Dutch investors. At that time, he convinced them to invest into this project. He saw a huge opportunity in Eastern Europe in general, and especially in Romania, for large dairy farming or large milk production. At that time, the deal was made with the majority of the Dutch investors that they would invest for 10 years and that they would make an exit. At that time, when the moment reached, let's say, he had several options, of course, to take it overall, to find a buyer, to buy those investors out. To cooperate with either private equity, for example, to enter into the company and to continue the business, or to bring it to the stock exchange, and what we eventually did. And in those milestones, as I said, there were a different group of investors. The company was growing quite relatively fast in the first 10 to 12 years, but still there were like different entities. So to become really a powerhouse, let's say, in milk production, the next step and the most natural step was to consolidate those different companies into one, and of course to have an ambitious growth strategy next to that, to make sure that we could become the largest milk producer in the EU, including the UK. In the beginning, he didn't have any succession, and nothing is always clear in life, let's say. So in the beginning, he discussed also with private equity, etc. And I think a lot of people sometimes underestimate this or make the mistake that when you bring your company to the stock exchange, that you don't have any control anymore, or that is the main way of financing, that you give out everything out of hand. But at least in my father's experience, what it was with private equity, for sure the case. A company that you built up yourself, and then to give out control on everything more or less, but still you need to remain for several years. That was not such yeah, he didn't have so much appetite for that, let's say. So then he came to me like to bring it to the stock exchange at that time, just a bit before I entered the company as well. That was my main role at that time. At that time, we made a clear strategy to make a good entrance on the stock exchange in 2022. And we thought we were really prepared in our way. I mean, if we would do it now, a listing again, would do a lot of things different, especially in the beginning. But nevertheless, it was a huge learning opportunity in 2022. And I think a big advantage was that we had a really good growth strategy in the beginning. Although when we just got listed, Putin started his aggression war against Ukraine, and yeah, we had a lot of things to manage in the beginning with skyrocketing fuel prices, gas prices, etc., electricity prices. It was really challenging, as well as being the first time in our life to be present most of your time in a country that where next door is a whole war happening, etc., with a lot of NATO, etc., on the highways, a lot of military everywhere around. So that was quite stressful in the beginning, but it all turned out well. And yeah, now we became, in the meantime, we raised 5 million euros in 2 or 3 days. We did the IPO. We further did some M&As, but mainly we had a really ambitious growth strategy, organic growth strategy inside the company. I think that really contributed, that we were really able, besides those difficult times, besides those difficult times, to execute other projects and to constantly increase our revenue, and in the meantime optimize our production costs. We significantly invested in sustainability, and we also show so far that we can really do that in an economic way, or in a profitable way. And that more or less made it where we are today. One of the fastest growing companies on the stock exchange, with this year almost a share price growth of 90%, since listing over 300%. So far, nothing to complain. Yeah, here you have the milestone. So it started in 2008. Then 2011, we had the operations at the Appold farm, and then we gradually grew with the Lacto Agrar farm, the Koet farm, which was completely first financed by our family itself. And yeah, by 2022, we became listed, and 2025, we are now here today, and we're still opening farms, we are building farms. And today we are, I think, in the biggest diversification, because first, of course, the goal was to integrate the businesses. Then there was the goal to become the largest milk producer in Europe, that we succeeded. And now we are further optimizing that business line. And currently we are in the next stage to become more of an agri-food company, and we are significantly diversifying, first in small steps, to do it in a secure way, with compost, with biomethane, mainly further increase of milk production. Next year, our first processing plant, where we will have a shareholders meeting already in beginning of January for an approval of financing for that, and it will also, just in a few months, will come operational. So that is there are a lot of exciting things ahead, let's say, but we try to do it in a safe and responsible way. But it's really time, from our perspective, to start to diversify certain revenue streams. So that's more or less where we are up to today.
Thank you very much. So basically, your business model stands out for the blend of innovation, acquisitions as well, if we look at the milestones, and of course, sustainability. So it's a combination of all this, and this led you to an accelerated growth, but also positioned the company quite uniquely in the market. I mean, like a business model. You mentioned that one of the defining milestones was the decision to list on the Bucharest Stock Exchange, so on the AeRO market. You mentioned some reasons regarding the drivers, let's say, behind this decision. Can you detail a bit more how did this process of being a listed company change the company's visibility and also further access to capital in order to continue to
Yeah.
invest?
Yeah. In the beginning, I mean, you hire a broker, you discuss the idea, of course, and you get a lot of guidance. And still, a lot of the early work is done at the broker, let's say. But as soon as you get listed, as soon as you get listed, yeah, you need to really to be visible, etc. And we had always a policy as a company with only foreign investors that is more or less zero tolerance policy of visibility. So this we really needed to build up from scratch, let's say, because now everyone can imagine when they don't have this relationship with the media, and as soon as they find out that you also more or less need them, let's say, for your visibility. And in the past, you always said no when they needed you or they would like to have an article with you. Of course, it took some time. But it greatly benefited the company. It was also always a dream for my father to have a listed company, but of course, it's not the first business with milk production far away, Romania, a relatively small market, maybe the first thing where you think directly on to take this route. But I think especially that it is a relatively small market, the capital market, etc. I think the Romanian capital market was a perfect match. At that time and still is today for the DN AGRAR group, because being a relatively small company, although we are also not that small, because I checked it with even on some foreign markets, as soon as you reach this, the 100 million market cap, etc. Okay, even with small or micro cap, etc. I thought even in foreign markets they will be way larger than we are, and especially if you also look to the Canadian market or to the American market, there are even also a lot of smaller companies where this is more in their nature, let's say, this type of financing. But it significantly professionalized the company because as soon as you get listed, you need to start do reporting. And in the beginning, we looked a lot how other agri businesses did their job on the stock exchange to look more or less to not really lead and to innovate on the stock market, and but more to follow what is the rest doing. And we got also quite soon criticized for that. I remember in the beginning when we got listed, we didn't publish directly quarterly reports because also some other agri business they didn't do that at that time. And I said, yeah, we shouldn't. Let's just follow this practice. The first quarter, not much activity is going on. Of course, we have milk production, but we also work 10,000 hectares. So it's not much going on. And through that, I thought, okay, no, that helps a bit because to report every quarter, it asks a lot from relatively small organizations, let's say. But okay, investors requested it and we easily adapted to it. So we started, I think, after year one directly also to report quarterly. In the meantime, as well, while we were consolidating business, we were implementing an ERP system that was quite a big challenge, especially in agriculture, where you need a lot of flexibility, and the SAP system gives a lot of things, but it doesn't give a lot of flexibility, let's say. That was quite a hard implementation, but we did this on purpose because in our minds, we were thinking way bigger than where we are today. So we knew we need to standardize all our processes and procedures on all the companies that we have into a good ERP system from where we can further scale, especially in the future, diversify our income streams. So it brought a lot of professionalism to the team. But in the first half year, it didn't. I mean, we had amazing figures. Nothing was seen. Then we signed a contract. We were introduced to you, to Vertic. And I think, yeah, so far we make an amazing collaboration on that. And I think it's really important. And I think there's also a role for the brokers in general. Let's say it's not necessarily only our broker, but I think brokers on the capital market should do way more by in the beginning with guidance, etc., and be on board when when a company gets listed, because it's easy to prepare on forehand. But as soon as you get listed, you have discussions with the BVB, how you need to deliver certain things, with ASF, to respect certain data, but also how to commercialize or how to market your company, what works, what doesn't work, etc. In the beginning, it's quite overwhelming. And by the end of the day, that would be really a benefit for the whole market to have more success stories, let's say, which will benefit all the issuers on the market. But it gives great visibility, it gave great transparency, and of course, we raised this 5 million euros, which we used to take over Lacto Agrar. It was also our goal at that time to also raise capital for the Apold farm, to do it also on the capital market, but because of the war. Of course, the capital market at that time, nothing was going on, so we did it by the end by a loan of ING. But from a professionalism and also whatever your goal is, because there are a lot of people who list their company and make an exit, let's say, that is also or partial large exit. That was not our idea. It was our idea to further professionalize the company, so we will be able to further growth, to have even a more complex business model in the future, to be more competitive. But it took some time to learn. And I think after half a year, 6, 8 months, we took it up and we started to innovate. We took own control. First, we looked how other companies' reports looked, etc. And I had a lot of opinions about it also in that time. But I thought, okay, don't try to be smarter than the rest or whatsoever, aligned to probably what is here the market practice. This we completely this strategy we throw away, let's say, in time, and we now really follow our own strategy. We try to be different than the rest. That is really in our DNA if we look to the capital market strategy. And it's a bit extrovert, I admit that, and sometimes maybe even a bit in a certain way aggressive. But we find it really a compliment if others say, okay, there is no one, even if they don't like it or if they like it, but there's no one like you on the market. And that's really where we try to focus on, to do everything different than all the others do, to stand out, especially in a business that is not necessarily that sexy. It's also B2B, not B2C. It took a lot of time to explain to people that they cannot buy our product on the shelf, etc. But I mean, you can see it in the shareholder. We started with 150 shareholders, and today we have 3,700. We are the most liquid stock on the AeRO market. We can also compete with the top 20 of the BVB, and it is really part of our business model. It's not only the farms anymore and all the other things that we are doing, but also IR and how to market yourself in this market where there is relatively low liquidity. It is one of our core operations in the business, and it is nice when you have a small team or a relatively small number of employees. Everyone needs to contribute to that, so we cannot have only one IR department who only does that the whole year. So everyone is a bit part in our team of the capital market story, let's say.
Thank you very much. So I'm just recapping a bit some of the information that you mentioned, and it's good also for the audience because you also emphasize once again that you are among or you are actually in top this year in terms of the liquidity from the companies from the beta aero index, and basically in top, if you would be on the main market, basically you will be there in top 20 companies in terms of liquidity. So it's very important also for shareholders, for investors to understand that if at a certain moment they plan, if they are not already investors in DN AGRAR and they plan to invest, they can do it, and it's very easy also to exit if they want. So it's not a problem that they will be stuck in case they want to exit, because the liquidity of the company, it's really comparable to those companies from the main market. Also, another very important fact that you mentioned mention is the fact that you are a B2B company, so no, not a B2C, and it's even more important that you manage to attract this number of investors. Knowing that, of course, on the aero market, the majority of the investors are individual investors, so not the institutional ones. However, this year you managed to attract also new institutional investors. So this is something that I believe you had in the strategy since the beginning of the listing.
Yeah. No, we're really proud of this. It is one of the largest and most active funds on the Romanian market. Fund that generally doesn't invest on the aero market. Maybe they did it only one time in their history, and in our case, they entered directly with 2%. And I think that one another time they did it was something with 1%. So we are really proud that we could convince and attract an institutional this early, because we met them already over a year ago, and also at that time, of course, the discussion was you need to have IFRS, clear trajectory to the main market. And both we don't have yet. Although today we took the decision when in today's management meeting we took the decision when we will go to the main market, and we will announce in the coming weeks to the right channels. That's not right to do it today, but this morning we took that decision, and so we're really proud that we have them already on board, and it will be a really clear strategy for the coming year. Especially that we are now advancing because we were thinking of other or more financing options. And now one of the reasons, because of the war, etc., and the capital market was quite quiet, is that we didn't make use of the market, as well as we are fast growing and we could obtain also bank financing for relatively good interest rates. So we chose to not further dilute our current shareholders in their participation, etc., but to grow this way. But we are quite advancing with the agri-food cluster, with the greenhouses. Yeah, we are already in negotiations, etc. So the next step is for that project to do a capital increase, and then the decision is, okay, do we need to increase directly a really large amount, or will we do this in 2 or 3 steps? Now that we should, I think, figure out in the coming 3 months, in the first quarter of next year, what is the amount, etc., and then to prepare, because you cannot do that from scratch. But yeah, we will meet the other funds as well in the coming year. Again, we have met almost all of them, the large ones, let's say, and it's a clear strategy from DN AGRAR itself to mainly focus in the coming period to attract these kind of funds, and also when we do these kind of increases. Because we also learned a bit of a lesson last year. We did a private placement, and although it was successful, also the price at that time was more or less was really stable for 1 year, because you get a lot of speculators on board, and of course you need speculators for the liquidity. But especially on the aero market, when you go for some larger amounts, you get really significant amount of speculators on board who want to exit, who first want to have quite a big discount from our perspective. And then after they try to sell for a long period, so that has quite an effect on the price. Not that we won't. I'm not saying that we will not give to retail investors opportunity also to join this, but I think for now mainly we're looking in that direction. But we will see. It could be also a combination of that, let's say. But then it's really our goal to make use again of the capital markets.
So moving to a more systematic perspective, let's say, from your experience and from everything that you did until now in terms of proactive approach, instruments, and so on, why you think it's the agribusiness attractive to investors, and how can it contribute more in diversifying Romanian capital market?
Well, I think the capital market can for sure use some diversification. There's a lot of utility companies, electricity, gas, etc. Companies who are listed. Also, are lots of companies, many of those as well, where the state participates in. So I think it's really good for the dynamic of the market that more also fully privatized companies, let's say, would join the market. It's a different vibe where they come in. There are different structures, especially also family businesses. It's again a different type of culture what they will bring to the market. We saw, of course, recently Christine company got listed. I think they have an amazing business case, and I'm convinced they will do really a good job, at least on the person behind it. Let's say I met their CEO once, and yeah, they look also really full of energy and to make really a success story out of this. So I have a lot of confidence in that. Yeah, agribusiness in general, I think it has shown in the last couple of years that it's quite hard to do well on the capital market. There are not many performing well. Group Shaban is really stable; they do a good job, and of course we as well. And of course, there are some other players as well, but they had some difficulties, I think. But I will not analyze all those competitors, let's say, of us on the market. I think mainly, like in every business, it's really important what type of strategy do you have, and also that you will be able to execute, because that's even more important, but that you really think several years in advance. I think one of the benefits from us is that we don't have only land, so we don't produce only cereals, which is even more sensitive, but that we were able to add a certain value to the milk that we produce. Because of course, by the end of the day, we produce a commodity, but we are able to sell um, um, for a Western European price. So there is a certain part, of course, that we add extra value to justify such a price. We work with long-term partners mainly. So, but mainly I think contributed why we could grow. Of course, that we saw also an increase in milk price, but especially that we constantly executed and brought in extra growth every quarter, or at least every year. Then I think there's a huge potential, but it really depends on the business model, and I think our business model is significantly different than others. Some are even more integrated than we are. We are clearly a mass producer, but yeah, try to become the best or the leader in your field, at least in the country, and presumably also in the region that you are. And then also the next step, of course, you can then start to diversify and to spread a bit the risk, let's say, so that you're not so vulnerable for one shock in one commodity whatsoever. But agribusiness is not easy. I mean, especially not when you have only agriculture. There's a big dependence on the weather, etc. And there are a lot of things out of control. Let's say there you manage maybe only 10%, 90%. You're yeah, the risks are out of your hands, let's say. That's one of the parts. Okay, we need to have this agriculture part. It's personally a part that I really don't like. Also not in our business model. So there is a reason that we look for this wheatgrass, etc., because I like to control things, or at least to have a contribution to something. But yeah, we need of course feedstock, but it's really hard based also on our experience to only manage land and then to have a growth year on year or quarter on quarter, let's say, while you depend mostly on other things.
So it's clear that you operate in a dynamic environment. Just as a side note for the people that are listening to us, if they want to address questions, they can put it in the chat or in the Q&A section. Coming back to the dynamic environment, so climate that you mentioned, of course, economic pressures, and even more this year in Romania, European competition, of course, it's also. So in this dynamic and also a bit challenging environment, what are the principles that guide your decision in general?
I think long term, and that's something that I really learned, and I think we also really proved to do it, as I said, and I don't want to repeat myself all the time, but I think the three most important things are strategy, strategy, and strategy. And also to stick to that. Because especially in emerging markets, which is in every emerging market, Romania is not specific for that. You have constant change of legislation. Like this year, with some fiscal measures that can change. We had the tax incentive for agricultural employees, which was quit. Subsidies every year vary, etc. So you need to try to build a resilient business model. But how can you build a resilient business model? Of course, when you have a strong strategy where you believe in for several years. Of course, you need to be agile to a certain extent, but not to hop on every trend or uh, error in the market or whatsoever. But to have a clear strategy, to be a bit deaf sometimes, or close your eyes to a certain extent for all the chaos that is happening around. Because since we are listed, we are only in chaos. I mean, we have a war, we have Trump. In the EU, we have a rise of populism in the EU, and of course, we had this also in Romania. So there are all the time a lot of uncertainties, and if you would think, okay, I'm gonna stop to invest, or every time to wait till certain certainties will come, it will slow down growth. That doesn't mean that you don't need to think strategic. So you need to think in scenarios. Try to think in different scenarios. What if this happens? How could we turn things, or to have alternatives? That's also all the time what we are doing now. For example, with our milk sales, we try now to look more from a geographic point of view, but also we start now with our milk processing plant to diverse it not only based on geographics, but as well on type of clients. Okay, but you don't want to compete with your own clients. Now, all these kind of things you need to think out how we can add extra value. What will be the trends? In our strategy is clearly that we want to produce net zero milk. So that is really a clear goal. And in a lot of investments that we do, they contribute to that. Because we think, you never know anything for sure, but from discussion that we have with the market, that it will become a thing from 2030, or at least early in the 2030s. So that will bring in the future extra added value. And you can even think bigger, which cannot share everything, but you can even think on a larger scale how you could enter certain collaborations, let's say, with this net zero production, it's also a nice thing for marketing, etc. It's a whole ecosystem that you could create there, and that's constantly what we're doing. Next to that, we try also to find some income streams or revenue streams that are less dependent on the commodity price. So to stabilize the company for certain shocks. One of them is the biomethane, which is just set on a clear price scheme, and it doesn't really matter if it is hot or cold or I don't know what is the milk price in Europe. It will give a constant a revenue stream. It's the same as we have high expectations from the compost plants as well. So that are new revenue streams that, besides how the milk market is, it's quite a diversification and still really close to our market. The investments are relatively small, but through this we stabilize in generally the streams more, and especially the profitability of the company, and we make it more shock resistance. Another thing, of course, is that we have also climate change. And as I mentioned, we want to produce net zero milk, but also we want to be responsible for the climate. So not only to label it somewhere really nice, like let's see what we can do. That we will have the first wheatgrass plant operational. We will really announce in the coming days or weeks some news in this regard. And the first plant will be operational next year. 30 to 35 tons output will be an investment of around, I expect around 3 million euros. The first one, it will be on the Koet farm. The first plant in an existing building already. Like this, we try to further reduce the risk for the first investment, let's say, so that we only need to purchase the equipment. And the tests are really looking promising, which will give a constant protein level, a constant sugar level, and we can replace 30% of the feedstock. And if you would think a bit more in advance, if we look currently to the biomilk price on the European market, it's skyrocketing. Let's say we see quite a sharp decrease currently in the milk price at least for December and for January, and I expect as well for February. After that, I expect, at least from what we know here, that it should stabilize and go up again. But through this, we could even transform the Koet farm, for example, in the future in a bio farm. Well, at least easier. Of course, we need still to solve a feedstock problem of 70%, but at least 30% is wheatgrass, 30 to 40% wheatgrass, no pesticides, no herbicides, 90% less water usage. We will also look if we can get their voluntary carbon credits for. So it is really in our DNA to do this in a sustainable way. And I think also this is the only way to do things in a sustainable. And then you look next to it if you can integrate certain things. So think of the agri-food cluster, the greenhouses, where we can use the captured CO2 from the biomethane plants. It's again a rest product which you can use in other business model, or where you can use your organic fertilizer in those greenhouses, etc. We have our already construction experience. We have our logistical company inside. So through that, you all the time try to make new connections in your business model and to further make it complex. On one hand, you make it more complex. On the other hand, you make it more shock resistant, let's say, more future proof, especially when you become a really large player in just one field, let's say. So then you have two options: to diversify your own region, where you have your network and your strength, or to look more geographically to complete other areas and to build up their farms and these kind of things. Of course, it could be another growth strategy. We chose to be more integrated. Sorry for my long answer, but
no worries. So it's clear that the vision is big. The strategy is also very ambitious, and you mentioned strategy and implementation of the strategy as a guiding principle, as well as sustainability. My question would be how you balance this expansion, innovation, sustainability, so the strategy overall and the plans, while also responding to the expectations that the investors have. Because I know that you are very active in discussing with investors, very open in receiving feedback from them. And I was wondering how you managed to balance all this.
No, that is quite a challenge. I think many companies make a mistake in the beginning, and it's also something I also really learned from my father. Probably it's also a bit a generation thing. When you're young, you want to go and to go fast, and we have this. It doesn't really translate from Dutch really to English, but I mean, it takes a lot of time to build up trust, let's say, but you can really lose it in one day, let's say. So for that, it's really important to deliver, not only to have big stories. So I think in the beginning, our strategy was we didn't announce everything that what we would do, let's say. Of course, it's really important to be transparent. Don't get me wrong, but we did more than that we even announced. And we always announce when we accomplish something, of course. But it's really important to first of all have the strategy, but then to execute it and also to deliver on it. So start not too complex, and especially in the beginning of a listing, then you want to grow fast. You want to deliver every quarter results, growth, etc. Now, especially in an agribusiness and especially in a commodity market, it's impossible to grow every quarter, let's say, only if there is no maximum price cap or whatsoever. Now, and we have even a price cap in Romania, let's say, on certain dairy products. Okay, it's not that is not the effect that I mean, but it's impossible to grow every quarter. But at least our goal is to grow more or less every year. Okay, you can have 1 year out of 5 that you didn't succeed or whatsoever, if there are obvious reasons. But it is really important to stick to that, to promise, to update the investors, also to update the investors if you have certain delays or if something goes wrong. I think in the beginning you are really, everyone is really afraid, or what will the investors think, etc. But in time you build up a relationship, and they get also to know you, and they know that if you're accountable or not, etc. And generally, if you do what you say, and that is really important to follow. And I think so far we really did this, and that's also the reason we wrote this strategy, because now you put yourself quite in a vulnerable position. We wrote a strategy for 5 years. I think there are not many companies on the local market who do this. We give even some financial scenarios there. Well, in 5 years, a lot of things can change. Also, certain business decisions can change. So you have always the risk as soon as you announce the strategy that someone says, but in your strategy you said in this year you would implement that. Why it is not there? So somehow we try to stick to that, but of course certain things can change. But at least it gives a lot of clarity if you come also with some arguments behind why you go into this direction or why you want to diversify, because that's also something investors not necessarily like. Generally, they like that you just do what you do and do that forever, let's say. But I think when you take them on the route and you start to explain why you do certain things, and you show that you cooperate with certain other companies in other industries or whatsoever who are expert in their industries, that gives a certain comfort that you act in a responsible way with everyone's money and everyone's shares. So that I think is how we try to balance it. And especially the coming year is really a year of execution where we need to prove ourselves. I told today to the management team, I said, we got some compliments that this year we executed a lot. We opened a new farm, the Strage farm. The commissioning of the second the composed fabric is almost there. At Lacto we implemented solar panels, batteries. We signed the supply agreement with Black Sea Oil and Gas, the development agreement with Black Sea Oil and Gas. We acquired a land, 20 hectares for the biomethane plant, for the Kutu farm, for the wheatgrass plant. We had the largest investor day in Romania on the capital market in Alba Iulia. We announced a new strategy. We had changed the management team. So we had a really busy year. I told him today, I said, now in the coming year, we have even a bigger opportunity to show that we really can execute, because we have even the coming year, we have a lot of projects, construction of wheatgrass and to get it operational, construction of the skimmed milk and a cream factory, which will also have the possibility to produce kosher milk. We see also some interest from Israel, etc. There. So that could be really interesting as well. So we will at least build it in a way that we can produce kosher milk. We will start the construction of the Kutu farm. So we have a lot of projects in the coming year to start to execute, which are also new type of businesses, let's say, in our business model.
So everything that you did this year was also reflected in the share price in the end, because you had a good share price increase.
True, so
I mean, I believe that you and the management team are proud of these achievements, and also that your efforts and everything that you are doing, it's also reflected in the evolution of the share price. Because as you were mentioning, it was a period when the price was more or less constant, or let's say in stagnation.
Yeah, we had amazing results, let's say. But the price was really constant. So we were happy to finally see that. Especially we saw that after the strategy announcement and the 2 contracts with Black Sea Oil and Gas signed. We are now in the permitting phase there. That really the price really grew quite fast, which was really good. Also, liquidity this year is amazing. Well, not in the beginning of the year, but especially after that. But yeah, it takes time, dedication, not to get disappointed or distracted, and also that the capital market is important, and we have a clear strategy there. I'm not gonna lie or hide that. We are really visible on that part, but of course, you should not distract you all the time. Also, not from the share price, etc. I try to do this myself, although I really don't succeed with that. Still, every day I check the share price. But I have some mentors, etc. Let's say, where now and then to talk with, to learn from, and now I always get this advice: don't look every day to the price. So I'm practicing on this. But it's really important not to get distracted all the time, and also not when you have certain declines. As long as you have your step on the horizon and you know where you're going, you know what you're doing, and you have clear arguments for that, and you follow your strategy, you have really thought it through, then value will always come. I mean, I think a good example is even Pulkar, although it's not necessarily a compliment for the capital market, but they had also a certain valuation. This company comes in, let's say, and just puts a higher valuation or a higher bid on the market to have a certain achievement of a participation in the company, etc. So there are many ways that you will one day get the right valuation. You should not be distracted by that. But of course, it really helps to get the right energy to see growth in the growth in the share price, but you should not look on a quarter or half a year. Most important is to follow your strategy, and then if it also comes with some results, that helps, of course. Then a good valuation will come for sure.
Anyhow, sometimes it takes time for the investor to understand the sector, the business model, and so on. So it's not immediately that when you have, as a company, good results, those results are also reflected in the share price. So for the audience, I put in the chat the link to the strategy that was announced by DN AGRAR in May this year. And from there, of course, you can access also the company website, and you will see more information about the strategy, about the projects. Nevertheless, I know that you will also launch a dedicated section in the website with all the information about the strategy, status for each project, and so on. Following a bit on these projects, what will be the main focus next year?
I think from an operational point of view is of course to further to finalize the Straja farm, at least the construction phase that should finish in the coming 6 months or in the first half year of next year. Start production of wheat grass, which is really important for our feed ratio. And then we can also do different tests, etc., directly on the large farm. The first one will be the Koet farm. So in the beginning of January, we'll have the shareholder meeting for that, for the approval. So that will be a big thing. I mean, a really relatively big thing, of course, is the processing plant with skimmed milk and cream, where we can increase exports mainly to Greece and northern Italy. That will be really a big step, directly with a production capacity of 150,000 liters. Also, we will build some extra storage capacity there. Always around Christmas and certain holidays, it's really hard to sell the milk because a lot of factories are closed, and sometimes then you need to sell for a really low price per liter. So through this, we will be able also to stock with the milk, etc. So that will really open up, from a geographic point of view, different markets, as well as that we can start to sell to bakeries, bakery factories, ice cream factories. We can deliver milk, let's say, exact with 1.7% fat, if that is required for a certain product, so pre-cap. And we can also sell, like the large processors, they only sell full trucks to certain companies if they want cream or whatsoever. Now, we could also sell to smaller bakeries and these kind of things, and to serve that part of the market, let's say, while not competing with our own clients. So this will give us a lot of more opportunities to diversify our clientele locally, but also on a European level. And I think this is really a nice next step in the growth strategy of DN AGRAR. So that is a really things that we will execute, as well as, of course, the Koet 2 farm, the new farm, 5,000 dairy cows, also with a capacity of 150,000 liters per day. That one we also aim to build there a processing plant next to it as well, to also produce skimmed milk and cream, if that is a success in the coming period. And we will start to construct from next year, the second part of next year, and that farm will come operational in 2028. So that's a big step as well. And I think the real big thing, but okay, that's more how we see it, because the other business lines, more or less, we know, etc., or at least if they are really relatable, is I really expect to come up at the end of Q3 with a clear roadmap for the greenhouses, as well as with the agri-food clusters. We will sign, or we signed a cooperation agreement with the Wageningen and food clusters. Was there 2 days ago? We had a whole day of brainstorming. Really interesting. We have a lot of new meetings already scheduled for January for this as well. We're gonna visit a lot of those kind of food clusters. So that will be really interesting. Also, those big four research will be also carried out in Q1. So after that, we have more or less a direction where, what, and how. Yeah, I think then we can start to share more with investors how to concretize that a little bit from an idea to a certain plan where we will invest in the coming years. As well as that we started already discussions with some companies who could put even greenhouses in that agri-food cluster, let's say. So first I thought it will take a lot of years to design this plan, but if we would succeed in these kind of corporations sooner, things could go even faster than expected. But this market looks really good. The business studies in this market so far are really looking good. So that is a bigger thing. But I mean, nevertheless, we have a lot of things to do. And of course, where we aim for is a positive financial investment decision for the biomethane plant. We're still waiting for the government for the injection into the grid, but we are ready at the end of Q1, let's say, to take a positive decision in that direction. As in that period, end of Q1, beginning of Q2, we will have all the permits, let's say, to build such a thing. So then the only remaining or the only open topic that remains is injection into the grid.
So finger crossed to have clarity on the injection into the grid and all the stakeholders to somehow, let's say, advocate in this direction and communicate on the.
Well, yeah, because I think it's good to add there, and that is really a pity. I mean, Romania is a great market to invest in, and if you do this in a really good way, you can generate nice margins, nice profits, create a lot of value, not only money-wise, but for the whole area. And I think we have proven that we do that for all stakeholders. But this resistance against innovation is really problematic from my point of view. As like with this type of mentality, you will always end up as a country to purchase technology and never to develop certain technology. And of course, if you are able to sell technology, it's way more an added value product. Nevertheless, by the end of the day, they cannot block this. This will be mandatory, and we see also some good practices. In the Netherlands, they just announced that they want to increase in the coming years in the gas grid. That becomes mandatory. Even over 20% of renewable gases in those in the gas grid. In Germany, from 2030, it is mandatory to mix at least 10%. So there is not really a way back in this, but many countries implemented this already. So that means all the technologies are developed. So now that is a pity, of course, but I mean, we stay confident, and at least the legislation is there in place. They are discussing it, but yeah, it goes relatively slow, let's say. But we remain optimistic, and so far as we can oversee, we are confident we can start to produce from 2028.
Super, thank you very much. We have two questions from the audience. The first one is as follows. How much do you expect the international sales to represent in the future from the business?
Now it really depends on I think there will be I mean you could think with the cream now it increased already, especially in the summer. We quite increased to Greece, but not through the whole year. So the main competitiveness to increase export is to reduce transportation costs. That's the main bottleneck there. Now, of course, for that we are investing in a processing plant. But I mean, it really depends a bit on the market demand as well. We could also sell a big part of the cream and the skimmed milk, as I said, to other types of clients. So not necessarily milk processors who could also use the cream, but also to bakeries, ice cream factories, Unilever, Nestle, these kind of food producers, let's say. So that really depends to where's the largest demand. But we will close a contract soon with and we have already a trader with an extra type of trader who has this network all over Europe to sell this type of milk. But normally our goal is to sell through this factory the full capacity of the Strasia farm. So that's 150,000 liters per day, over 50 million liters per year. Then naturally, if you would sell just full trucks, then this should be export, as well as for as far as we can oversee now, that the Q2 farm should also be built in the same way, where we should also have this processing plant idea to build that next to that farm as well. So then we talk about 300,000 liters per day. With the current farms that we are building, we should also be able to produce around 300,000 liters, let's say. So that should be then almost 50%. But with a remark there that not necessarily all the milk needs to be exported. It could also go to these other type of clients, as I mentioned. So.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is related to the milk price. If it will be lower or higher in 2026, like full year compared to full year 2025. And
Yeah.
how much will be this deviation?
No, this we don't know yet, but okay. I mean, it is really clear. We are really confident to reach the budget for this year, but I mean, now in December we have already a sharp decrease in milk price. And in January it will even be sharper. No one knows, but no one expected this. To the current moment, there comes too much milk from, especially from the Netherlands and Germany into to Europe. As I mentioned as well, as if you look to the whole market, also the weak dollar plays a role in there. Um, but that's really on the short term, and it's mainly due to the fact to blue tongue and the mouth and claw disease last year. So the whole cycle is a bit different because cows started to give birth to calves in a different period than usual. Even the processors we're really not expecting that, and we are all the time monitoring this. We expected a small decline, but not like this. No one expected this, and there's a lot of pressure in the market at the moment. What we will see is, I think, as well, a low milk price in February. And for now, we see at least some optimism after that. That maybe in March we'll have a increase again, or April. And anyway, this part of the period in general, the natural cycle produces also a lot of milk in general. So that is a bit hard. So what we try to do is to further optimize our herd structure. And use a lot of farmers are doing that to bring some animals to the slaughterhouse. And still to further optimize the production cost. But I mean, if we look really on the short term to surpass Q1 last year, where we had already a really high milk price compared to the upcoming period, I think that will be hard. Still, of course, we will further increase our milk supply. We will have more compost, so we will be able to manage it to a certain extent. Over the whole year, I don't expect that the whole year will give a higher milk price than we had this year. We had a really good milk price. So it's normal that there comes a bit of a correction, not so much as now, but we will not make the budget too early. But as far as I can see over now, I think we would probably will make the budget, but I cannot give guarantees on that because we really need to see what happens in the coming 2 to 3 months. But as far as we can see over now, we would be confident at least we would be able to budget to use the milk price that we also used in the beginning of this year when we made the budget, let's say. So that is around scenario 2 or something like this, if you look into our system. And that is still really a good milk price. And a bit on the mid to long term, the market looks really good. There will be less milk on the market. A lot of farmers will quit. They will not have a future. So on the long term, there is no issue at all. It is really a temporary error. But we need to see. Does it take only 2 months, or will it be 4 months, let's say? But that's more the time frame where we are looking into it.
So overall, like let's say a summary when investors are looking at how to evaluate you and your business in the next year, okay, they should look at the milk price, of course, and here maybe it will be a correction, but they should look at the overall business model, and you have extra production capacity, you have compost as well, so should
Yeah,
be the
no, I
whole
mean
picture
it's
integrated.
no, I mean on that part we, as I said, as a business owner or managers, you try not to look every day to the share price. But a lot of investors are always really impatient. But I mean, let's be very clear. I mean, we have an amazing investment opportunity, and we have proven so far. We said all the time what we did, and we did all the time what we say. So I mean, we that is first a core principle. Secondly, we did a lot of investment. So we have shown that in an emerging market with constant change of legislation, that we have really built a core foundation in the area where we are located, that we can execute fast, that we implement successfully time after time. As well as that, we have announced a strategy for the coming 5 years with a lot of ambitious plans, and we just announced it in the first half year. I mean, and now we will come in January to ask for the financing approval. So in the rest of the year, we acquired the land, we chose the technology, etc. There are also some innovations. So things look really bright from our perspective to the future. And I mean, with all the AI things that are going on, etc., I think this is a really extremely competitive world for a lot of companies who are betting on find or to innovate and produce the right technology. I think food is an amazing industry to be in the coming years, with a huge fight what is going on in the AI and IT sector in the coming years. While we have climate change, we have a growing world population, we have a huge decline of number of farmers and number of production facilities. So I mean, all the lights are clearly on green, let's say, to invest in this area. And this year, the coming year, will be a really year of execution. And of course, for investors, it should be a benefit. I mean, the ones who are really impatient, it's a good time to buy then, let's say. But I mean, we don't expect really a bad year. Don't get me wrong at all. We had an amazing milk price this year. We also expect a good milk price next year. But we have also a lot of investments next year, which will really start to flourish, of course, in 2027. And of course, normally the main boom is in 2028. We have said this many times, because then also the biomethane project becomes fully operational from the beginning. We will have the Straatje farm fully operational. We have several compost units, optimizing the wheatgrass and a diversification in types of clients for the milk part. So I think, and that are all business segments where we have experience in and where we have relationships in. So I think we are in a really good position to deliver results in the coming years as well. But of course, it's always when you are in a commodity market, you will be affected when there are some significant shocks. So I mean, small decreases we can easily mitigate because we all the time grow our milk supply. But of course, when the shocks are bigger, this will be harder. But it's really something on the short term. I mean, you should think of a few months, let's say, that this should have an effect. And again, this is transparent. We are transparent for that. But again, for that's even more important that we have this diversification strategy. That we start further to diversify our revenue streams. Well, it will be easier to adapt and to accommodate those shocks. I think that is a really important step for sustainable growth of the DN AGRAR group.
Thank you. Discussing about the strategy, we have one attendee that analyzed the strategy, and he's stating that, of course, your aim is to double EBITDA by 2030 by extending the capacity, the production capacity, developing clusters, biogas, compost, energy projects. As shareholder on BVB, which are the concrete rules to allocate the capital? And here he's mentioning ROIC and IRR and internal rate of return minimum, the limits of debtness, and the 2-3 operational indicators that you consider that are base essentials to demonstrate that each additional run of capex, so of investment, creates sustainable value per share, and if you will communicate to the market these indicators.
Now we have some internal rules. For example, with this debt ratio should not be, we would not like that it goes too much above 3. When we communicate with investors and banks, I think there is up to 4 around, but especially in the agribusiness, sometimes that is even higher. But that is also the reason that we look, for example, to do a capital increase, especially with this food cluster, so not to finance everything by banks, so to maintain limits. But our goal is to be around 3.5 or something like this, I would say. And we have also an internal rate of return. This is never something that we publish so far. I'm also not sure if we really will. What we will do also. In the upgrade to the main market, let's say, in more or less based on governance structure, that we will give some rules. So, okay, in our company, we always aim for an internal rate of return of X, let's say. I'm not sure that we will, with every individual project, to also deliver that. I'm not sure if that is really relevant and smart to do. But I mean, as you all know, we are really open for ideas, so we could see. With the return of investment, well, in general, what I can say is, with the new projects that we are currently implementing, they all have a return of investment between 2 to 5 years. Okay, not maybe the farms, but I mean the new projects. If we look to compost, to the wheatgrass facility, etc. So they are all in these range. I expect also, if we look to greenhouses in that industry as well, there's many times return of investment of around 5 years. So now then you have some directions, let's say. What we will, of course, improve is a bit also our financial reporting. So to show quarter-on-quarter growth and these kind of things, I think this will be implemented gradually. Of course, we will start to publish next year in IFRS. And maybe for some if it become really large projects, let's say, okay, we could think of to share some more information there. But we will do things step by step. I think we are already, from our perspective, it's extremely transparent. I think it can also be seen that we win all those investor relation and communication awards locally, but also internationally. And step by step, we will always see what is most in the company interest and to find a balanced way to do that. Let's say also taking in consideration certain margins, etc. You not always want them that they are open to the market. Another request we get all the time: please share the milk, your sales price of milk, etc. It's not that we don't want to share this. It's more or less the processes where we sell could have problems negotiating, or if you will give exactly the margins for the compost, it will be hard for us to sell a certain product if potential clients see certain margins, let's say. But step by step, we will be more detailed on certain projects. And especially on the agri-food cluster, you can expect, of course, a bit more, a bit more transparency of direction in certain direction, as it is a new business line and also quite CapEx intensive.
Thank you very much. I have another not me, but the audience, another question. So when do you estimate that you will do the upgrade to the main market? Maybe just to re-emphasize what you mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah. So this morning, a few hours ago, or not quite some hours ago, but we took the decision. We will communicate it, I think, in our newsletter in 1 or 2 weeks. What it will be either 2026 November, October, November, or it will be 2027 April or May. And then it could be if we will choose for October, November next year. That would be mainly need to do a capital increase for the first greenhouses, let's say, and if that project is going on quite fast, then we will do it next year. If not, then if we don't expect that, at least for as far as we can oversee it now, then it will be in April, May, because we really would like to combine the upgrade to the main market with the capital increase, mainly due to administrative reasons, that the two procedures are more or less the same, let's say, so it's more efficient to do that in one step and not to do the upgrade to the main market and then in 6 months a capital increase.
Thank you very much. And one last question that we received, and is related to the first question related to the international sales. The question is maybe a follow-up question. What percentage of the milk do you estimate you will export in 2026? So maybe just for you to re-emphasize what you answered.
Yeah, so I mean, it really depends. I mean, we have several trucks also now to Bulgaria. We start to sell something. Of course, in the summer period, especially in the summer period, there is even more demand in Greece and in Italy. That mainly depends a bit when the facility becomes operational. So the skimmed milk and cream, that plant can maximum produce 150,000 liters of milk, but okay, the extraction farm cannot produce that yet, let's say, and still current around close to 90% of our milk is still contracted. I think around 83 or 85% at the moment. So potentially Exports could range in the coming year maybe around 15% or something like this. But again, it's also when the milk is not contracted, sometimes we also sell to other milk processors in Romania, let's say. So it's not everything will pass the border. But it is clear that the main reason we invest in this cream and skimmed milk facility is to diversify our clientele, but mainly to export. So in time, we could increase this to 40, 50%, let's say. But okay, that will take several years. And not only the Strasje farm, but also the Good 2 farm implemented. But in the coming years, it should be relatively easy, at least to go to 25% or 30%, let's say, more or less on a shorter term.
So just to wrap up, let's say, our discussion with strategic question, maybe, how much you anticipate the share price to be in 2030, because you have a strategy for 2030. So in this way, to convince maybe a few other investors to join you like today or tomorrow, because today the stock exchange is closed.
I think it is really a good moment still. I mean, in our opinion, it should be at least 3.12 at the moment, with a market capitalization of around 100 million euros. As we said, this year we aim at least to have between 48 and 52 million of net profit. We are really confident that we will succeed, or that we will succeed in that regard. I mean, I saw also the figures of October. The figures in October looked really good. Also in November, they will look good. So we are really confident that we will reach this. And I think that is a huge growth. If you only look to our 9-month figures, we had 100% growth in net profit, 25% increase in revenues. I mean, the figures are really terrific. And I think people sometimes underestimate this in the sense of, for an agri-business, which is capex intensive, that are really big figures, let's say, to do this already for several years. So I think in 2030, and we will make a really big step if we look to the strategy. A lot of things that are announced in the strategy, even some things that were announced later on in the strategy or the years after, we will start to implement in the coming year. So in the coming 2 years, a big part of the strategy will already be finalized, let's say, of the things that we have announced in 2026 and 2027. So we are really executing in the coming years. So I think in its minimum it should be double, let's say, in 2030 to 100. But if I also saw the financials for the greenhouses, etc. As I said, now if we succeed in that, look really promising. I think there should be a market capitalization between now let's have a bit of a range of around, now let's say, between 220 million and 280 million euros, let's say, something like this, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. So for those of you in the audience that you are not already
But okay, it's not an advice, or don't
no,
sue
just
me
to
or
consider.
whatsoever. Yeah.
To consider diversification, because my let's say one of the key takeaways from today is that diversification, it's important for both companies, so in terms of the business model, but also for you as investors. So thank you once again.
Yeah, sorry, and maybe to add there, because the diversification that we do so far, we don't do it through M&As. And what you see many times, especially also with listed companies, they start to grow fast and then they start to do a lot of M&As. And there are also a lot of failures there when you integrate a different company culture, different type of business model to try to incorporate it into your own business model. So far, we don't do this. So we really grow organically in our main business lines and in business lines that are really relatable with relatively low capex investments, with a really short return of investment. The compost is even under 2 years. So it goes, the return of investment are really ambitious, let's say. The biomethane, where we only need to deliver the feedstock. The wheat grass is only part of more or less of the operations, let's say. So first we really looked with diversification to types of business lines that are really close to our current activity and who have not a big effect. I mean, the cows anyway give manure every day. And then the next step, of course, you go a bit further. But so far we didn't do it through M&As. Of course, especially to the agri-food cluster and the greenhouses, we will look for partnerships. people, companies who have a proven track record, who have a lot of experience in these type of industries, etc. Not to create something complete ourselves, but really try to do this in a safe way. So because I know diversification is not nice, but also for a lot of people to think, okay, don't start something new or whatsoever. But we really try to do this in a strategic and in a balanced way. In a way also that from an organization perspective we can control.
Thank you very much, Peter, for an authentic and very insightful discussion. Thank you to the audience for sending questions and for staying with us until this hour. It's clear that they are interested in hearing about such a success story that you have on the capital market, and congratulations once again. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.